I have two of my beta readers here. Beth Davis Reinhold from Maryland and Cindy Lantier. Did I pronounce your name right? Okay. And I believe you're in the Inland Empire now? All righty. Yeah. Longtime friends. Beth is an especially longtime friend. We met in second grade Brownie Girl Scouts, and she still agreed to be a beta reader for me. Who knew? So that was quite fun. And Mike, do you want to do the introduction? And then everybody can mute and we'll do the program. How does that sound?
That sounds just fine. I don't know how to say this to introduce Anita, but if you ever spend any time with Anita, and if you've ever talked with her, you discover something else that she's done. There seems no end to this woman's adventures. Her whole life has been, being a pastor or being a wife or taking care of Archie, and it seemed like for the longest time when I first met Anita, there was, every time we talked, there was something new that I found out about her, and she has one of the most interesting lives of anyone I've ever met. She's helped me considerably. I was in her critique group, and it's really helped to focus me and help me to learn more of the craft of writing. So this whole topic of beta readers is new to me. I was completely unfamiliar with it until Anita brought it up. I think we're all going to come away with something very vital that will help us to really polish our writing and make it something that is worthy of being read and enjoyed. So with no further ado, I am turning this over to Anita.
All right. Thank you, Mike. And yes, if you all will mute your microphones, that would be super. And I didn't know a whole lot about beta readers until I got involved in a program called 100-Day Book. That's a mentoring program for writers. And one of the "So what do you do now?" presentations that we had was about looking for beta readers. And I thought, oh, great, something else I need to do. But the more I looked into it, the more excited I was about it. So this is some of what I have gleaned from my research, my talking to other people, and my having beta readers myself. So I will start a screen share for my PowerPoint. All right. There's not a whole lot of writing on the far right side. So if suddenly you find yourself with all the little happy faces blocking the PowerPoint slide, not to worry. Oop, and we have it decided to start. There we go. Okay, there's beta reader or beta testing for computers, and in fact, there's been beta testing for computers since the 50s. And this may not be what our computers look like anymore, but there's a long history of trying things out, trying out the programs, trying out the software. And wouldn't it be a great idea if there was, dang, there we go. Why not have a beta reading program for books? And that's exactly what there is. There is a program for beta readers, and it's the beta testing for books. And first off, beta readers are the ones who do the beta testing. And I'm going to review what a beta reader is and what a beta reader isn't, what they do and what they don't do. Why have beta readers, the benefits and the process, and why you might be interested in being a beta reader. And also, if you have any questions along the way, be sure to type them in the chat because we'll have time for answering questions at the end. So first, what's a beta reader? Well, I'll tell you what they aren't. They aren't copy editors, although, yeah, they may notice some mistakes you've made in your grammar. They're not structural editors, although they may notice a hole in your plot that's big enough for you to drive a car through. They're also not critique partners, although there may be some places where it's obvious that your writer's craft might need some work, and they might even point that out to you. What beta readers are readers who are going to look at your book with fresh eyes. And because of that, they're going to help keep future readers entertained, keep future readers from being disappointed or let down at the end of the book, and also keep you from ending up with those 1-star reviews on Amazon and snarky comments that go along with them. What they do as part of their beta reading and commenting is they let you know when your characters are flat. They also let you know when they just don't understand and when things are confusing. And beta readers also let you know when the world that you have created is a little hard to understand and get their bearing in. Where would you find beta readers? Well, where you can look is you can ask friends, you can ask other writers, you can ask people you know online. And while one of our members in the meeting tonight said he asked his family, probably not your mother. Most people don't want to ask their mother because their mother would probably say, "Oh, honey, that's so nice. I really like your book." If my mother were still around and able to be a beta reader, I'm sure she would find at least a half a dozen things that she felt were major errors in the first 2 paragraphs, which is why I would not ask my mother. But it's important to get people who can give you honest feedback. And that's part of the mandatory qualifications. You need people who are readers. If there's someone who's all excited that you've written a book and they want to know what it's about, but they've read, oh, maybe a book a decade, or they struggle to finish a book a year, probably not the people that you're going to want to have being your beta readers. You also want them to be honest, just like these little Canadian Girl Guides promise to be honest. And optional, you'll want someone who reads your genre and also hasn't read your book before, because part of beta reading is they get the reader's experience reading your book for the first time. Also preferable, and this comes from the Right Practice blog, people who can convey their opinion without crushing your soul. And on the flip side, you want someone who shows you what's wrong with your manuscript without making you feel too stupid to live. And what do beta readers need? Well, first off, they need guidance. And I thought it was so great when Beth Davis Reinhold, who is here with us this evening, replied to my request to find out, or my inquiry, if she wanted to be a beta reader. She says, "Tell me what you want and give me a deadline." And she was right on task with that. And I also was going to provide her with that information. So I thought that was great. Also, you need to provide your beta readers with a copy of your manuscript. And it's important that you have a review of the technical stuff. And that's where I didn't cover all the bases. I'm kind of spoiled during the last 2 years of having worked with people and mentoring people where they have a pretty good grasp on Microsoft Word and putting comments in it. But not everybody knows that. And what makes sense to me does not necessarily make sense to someone else. So that's one thing where I know I need to work a little harder, a little better at being clear with what it is that I want in terms of technical stuff and what other people are able to do. Also, what they need is respect. Your beta readers are doing this for free, and so it's important that you don't bug or shame them. And especially remember that life happens. And also, it needs to be fun. When I get to the end here, we're going to hear some comments from Beth about what it was like to be a beta reader, but also I'll show you the beta readers news that I wrote up to answer frequently asked questions. Also, what they'll get is my and you as a writer's eternal gratitude, although your mileage may vary. I'm not really sure how eternal my gratitude will indeed be, but I'll do my best. And a mention on my acknowledgements page and a free copy of the book when it comes out. And I also say there will be prizes, and indeed there were. Or I mean, there are. I'm already getting them ready in a little pile. So yes, good stuff. And then what happens though, when you send out your manuscript to your beta readers? What do you do while you're waiting? Well, while you're waiting on the feedback, you wait until the bulk of the feedback is in. Because otherwise you get something that's wonderful and you just bask in the glow. And then 3 days later, you get something and someone says, oh my goodness, this was so weird. And then you had this character doing something that was so out of character. I can't believe that you haven't developed their characterization better than this, or things like that. Nah, you read them all at once. And besides, we as readers, I mean, as writers, have lots to do in our lives. So it's not like we're sitting around doing nothing. So once you get this feedback, what do you do with it? Well, there's so much of it, and it's okay. It's totally okay that there's so much of it. And what you need to do is read it. For starters, just read it. Don't necessarily respond to it. Don't think, oh, this is terrible, this is horrible, this is good. But just read it. And then you categorize it. And you can look at, what do you want to ignore? Stuff that's off target or stuff that you totally disagree with. And you keep the positive feedback about things the reader loved, because that's always nice to have. And then you consider feedback you're not sure what to do about. And then to do suggestions that you agree with or think, yeah, I probably need to think about this for a while and want to incorporate. So when you've done that with your feedback, the stuff that you ignore, you ignore. Those warm, fuzzy comments that you decided to keep, you set that aside for later. The consider, do that, consider it, and then recategorize it. Anything in there you can ignore, anything in there you want to keep, anything in there you want to turn into a to-do. And then with the to-do, you look for patterns. Is something a habit of yours? Are all of your beta readers in agreement? Are there other things you can see where in doing certain kinds of descriptions, you always fall back on doing this or skipping something that would provide clarity? So put those items in order and consider your edits. And I would encourage you as well to consider being a beta reader. You think, well, I'm a writer. Why would I want to be a beta reader? Well, there's benefits. It will make you a better reader, because one of the things that you're encouraged to do as a beta reader is to answer certain questions and consider certain things about the reading. So that makes you a better reader. And as for the illustration, I wish I could tell you where in New York City this wonderful grotesque is on the building. I tried to find it, and lo and behold, there's lots of buildings in New York City with readers on them as grotesques. But it's not so grotesque to become a better beta reader and a better reader. And also, it helps you to join the team. One of the things about whether you're rock climbing or whether you're just part of an organization is there's times when you get to be the one who holds the ropes. I was told that when I trained for rescue rock climbing, when I was with the National Park Service. My inner ear issues do not allow me to rappel very conveniently. And as the instructor told me, somebody has to be at the top holding the ropes. But then there's times, whether it's writing or whatever your skills are, that you develop them enough that you can be the one where people can hold the ropes for you. And it's just a great way to connect. And in fact, I would think it would be a fun thing for us to start as individuals in our own California Writers Club branches, as well as throughout the California Writers Club, to get a team of beta readers going to work with each other, as well as specialty readers. So there's where my image sources came from. And I am going to stop that share. And I will quickly show you my beta readers frequently asked question. And first I will preface it by saying, oh my gosh, I had a 2-page frequently asked questions for beta readers that was so boring. I looked at it and I thought, I would hate to force anyone to read this or even expect anyone to read this. So what I did instead was I came up with the beta readers news, and it has pictures. It has cute dog pictures. It gives a summary of what the book is about. And it also emphasizes that beta readers should look to be entertained. And in terms of what happens if you don't finish, I have instructions now. It's like, okay, it's all right. No, you don't have to quit. Just enjoy the book first, or see if you can enjoy the book. And also, I will, let's see. For people who say, oops, come on. There we go. What if I hate your book? Because that's something that's kind of scary. What if you get the beta readers involved and you think, oh golly, somebody might hate my book? Well, the whole honesty thing, I encourage people to try to tell me nicely. And if it's totally not your thing, that's fine. Not everybody's going to like my book or any book, and I can take it. But for some people, that conversation might be too awkward to say, I'm sorry, I just couldn't get through your book with a shovel. It was just way, way more than I could handle. I encourage people to make up creative excuses. Although I not totally disappointed, but no one has come up with an excuse. But my favorite excuses involve tyrannosauruses and thunderstorms, but I encourage people to do themselves. But anyway, the emphasis is that beta readers can do something that I, as the author, can't do, or editors or critique group members, which is casually read the story for the first time. And one of the things that I'm avoiding, and hopefully my beta readers are avoiding, is just being totally anguished about what's going on with the book and the process. So Beth does not seem to be totally anguished or even marginally anguished about the book. So Beth, would you like to share with us what your experience was like being a beta reader?
Sure. I don't think I told you this, but this is actually my second time being a beta reader.
Oh.
I beta read a book for my pastor a couple of years ago, and yours was a whole lot more fun. His was good, but it wasn't fiction and it wasn't fun. But anyway, yours was fun. I enjoyed it a lot. There were a couple grammar things you do that just make me want to grind my teeth. But other than that, it was a fun book. I got confused at points, and I told you about that. Right. I couldn't help proofreading a little bit, but I didn't find too much to proofread. I'm just quite honored to be asked, actually. Uh, you go up with a volume 2, please include me in your list of beta readers.
Well,
I'm
thank you.
curious about how you process this. Did you print out all the chapter 1 beta reader things and then get comments from those and then go on to chapter 2? Or did you go all the way through mine and then all the way through somebody else's? Or how did you do that? It seems like it'd be relentlessly complicated.
I was going to combine, which is a great question, because it's something I did not cover, but I alluded to
It's
it.
not our problem. I'm just curious.
Right. But for people who want to use beta readers, it's important. I just assumed that everyone would make comments in the right-hand margin of the Microsoft Word document and get them back to me that way. And then I would combine them in a document. And I've had people who have sent me PDFs. I have people who have sent me Word documents that were just a list of their comments chronologically by page numbers. And then I had some people who have not sent in their comments yet because they read it in a format and responded in a format that I can't read. It requires additional software. So Beth, I was going to organize things kind of by chapters as well as by, patterns. But it's a little hard for me to do that, but it's okay because I'm working really hard at my not anguishing part in all of this, as well as thinking, for starters, people are volunteers and they are doing me a favor. And all of us have different levels of technological skill. And I'm finding this out and just realizing that there always has to be a plan B. Even if I were to have a Zoom workshop when I showed people what I wanted them to do, there would still have to be a plan B. And as I mentioned, life has happened and there have been some crises in some of the people's lives. And I fully believe that they'll get back to me with their materials, but they haven't yet. So that's just one of those things. And as I mentioned in my beta readers news, if people wanted me to let them know, have a reminder, they would have to ask me for reminders. I wasn't automatically going to do that because that's nagging at people. And somebody's doing me a favor. I want someone to read something with fresh eyes, and like a regular reading experience, how many times when you're reading a book does the author send you an email and say, are you done with that yet? You might get a text or an email from the library to let you know that you have to return a book. But I mean, in terms of the author bugging you, no. So yeah, that's not something that works very well. So I'm still waiting for some of the results to get in. And I have gotten quite a variety of ways and methods that people responded. And it's kind of fascinating to me. And for those, well, I mentioned to Mike, we were going to do the check-in and the setup, and I was a few minutes late. I had water damage in my home, and the packers were here for 2 days. The people were packing things up so they can tear out the cabinets and part of the wall and the floor. And Archie and I are pretty much in this room here in the bedroom. We're going to turn the bedroom into a little apartment. And I think that's it. When things like that happen in life, it's a great way of reminding me that as an author, as a writer, as someone who's working with other people, what kind of things happen. So anyway, all right, a couple comments here on Did that answer your question, Beth? Probably that and a little bit too more, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to look at the chat, and I think they're sort of related. Richard, you wanted to know if I provided the beta readers some structure guide to help them send me this sort of observations. Yes. In addition to their general impressions. Yes. And Mike, you've got a string of questions there. And yes, I'm going to go over that in a moment. But I'll read the question here. So I asked the readers to comment page by page throughout the book. They could do that. They could. Did they have to respond at the end of each chapter? They didn't have to, but they could. Were there questions for them to answer? Yes. And would it be okay to supply them with worksheets to fill out at the end of each section? I suppose it would be to have sort of a workbook. But again, there's the challenge of what format is it going to be in? Is it going to be a writable PDF? Is it going to be a Word document? Is it going to be something that they print out and hand to me after they've written it out by hand? So there's a bunch of options. Okay, I will screen share again and show you the beta reader news. Okay. So, okay, this is the timeline down here. I'm looking for honest feedback. And this is from Chris Winkle on his blog. And for those places where people felt confused, bored, found something unrealistic, guessing the ending, which is a good thing, or enjoyed something, mark that. Places that stood out to people for whatever reason, add comments explaining with words what the reaction was, because if somebody just puts a smiley face there, that's not particularly helpful. And also give an overall summary of whether they enjoyed the work. And something beta readers don't need to do is to actively look for ways to improve the work or suggest solutions to problems you noticed or read the story more than once, because those aren't typical of readers. However, I will say that one of my beta readers has a background in being an editor and did address some structural issues with me, which is fine. And then an optional list of questions from Andrew Burleson, who wrote a blog for The Right Practice. At the end of each chapter, I had a little symbol that looked like this, if you can see that, two little dingbats. And so people could highlight that and insert a new comment, which would let me know that the comment applies to the whole chapter. And just ask people to provide a short answer. Under 40 words is fine, to any and all of the following. What did you like most about this chapter? Was there anything you found confusing or hard to believe? What are you curious about? Did the ending hook you and make you want to read the next chapter? So those were the kind of guidelines that I gave. And in terms of my writing as well, my writing is cozy with magic realism. And instead of my cozy taking place in a little village in England, it takes place in a little village in upstate New York. And so that's a little bit of the context. Judith asks, at what point in your writing and editing process would you have beta readers? For example, would you have beta readers first, then a critique group, then a professional editor? How I did it and how it seems sensible to me, for me, is first there's the rough draft. And there's the rough draft where you actually get all the way from the beginning to the end. And then there's having an alpha reader. And basically the alpha reader is someone where you really impose upon them. And Kathy Smith is here, and she was my alpha reader. And I am eternally grateful, indeed, as eternally grateful as I can be. Yeah, she struggled her way through my book. For those who don't know, Kathy is my daughter, my stepdaughter, and she also has a background in being an editor. But I told her, just read it, just read it, just read it, and she did. And yes, so anyway, the alpha reader, the important thing there is somebody needs to be able to tell you, have you got any kind of a clue for a story? So I did that. My second draft was a structural draft, and oh my gracious, talk about holes in the plot big enough to drive a car through. I had them. Talk about a horrible ending. And at one point, I felt as though my characters turned on me because I just wasn't treating them right. And another thing that I did as well was I had one chapter that was 10,000 words. And instead, I'm aiming for 2,000 to 2,500 words, although some of my chapters are a little longer. So I had to deal with that. I had to make the story flow. I had to make things get resolved. Then my third draft was to kind of get the countdown on the chapters and smooth things out. And I would say, Judith, that's good for having an alpha reader and perhaps some people in a critique group who can let me know, is this making sense? Is the story flowing? Is the characterization good? So look at stuff that's writer's craft material. And then, so that's the critique group. And it might be one person that you work with critiquing, or a larger group, or both. Then what would come next would be, when you think you've got it smoothed out, it's not perfect, would be beta readers, because you want to get them an idea of what the book is kind of going to be like. And some people even say, oh yes, you should give them either an ebook or give them a real book and have the cover and everything. Well, to me, that's really close to the end. And if I've got that, while it looks nice, it's a little harder to make comments in. So I did not go that route. I specifically chose not to. And then the professional editors would come afterwards, and proofreaders and layout and that sort of thing. So did that answer your question, Judith? Okay. And Cindy asks, how many beta readers is a good number? When I started out, that's Cindy Fry asked that. When I started out, oh my gracious, I had no clue how I could even recruit. When I say recruit, it's like ask timidly how I could recruit beta readers. And I thought, gee, I might be lucky if I get 3 or 4. And instead, I thought, well, I'll aim for half a dozen. And then I thought, oh, I got half a dozen. Well, I'll aim for 12. There are many people who do this a lot. And if you do this a lot, just as Beth said, she'd be willing to do it again for me. You get people who say, yeah, I'd be interested in doing this again. I believe Cindy, you said that as well. Yes, you'd be willing to read another book that I write with the same characters. So that's pretty exciting, to get people that, just like regular readers, they buy and read your first book and go to the second one. Some people will work with 24 beta readers. You have to be really focused when you're going into the dozens of beta readers, with knowing how you're going to manage your comments. And that's the one thing. You want to have enough beta readers so it's not just a couple of people that like the way you write going squeak. And you want to get past that. So you've actually got something that's useful and helpful. And yes, they're seeing what you've written, warts and all. But also not get to the point where it's so overwhelming that it's really difficult. Writers who are rich, famous, and successful, yeah, they're people. They take care of that. And organize that in the comments. And in fact, some beta readers are paid. I'm not at that point yet where I can pay beta readers, but there will be prizes. So there's that. Judith, did I answer your question? And Cindy, we got how many beta readers is a good number?
Yep.
I would say
perfect.
aim for at least a dozen. 18 would be
Okay.
great. But
Perfect.
but
Perfect.
sometimes you get what you get.
Yep.
How might one recruit beta readers? Ask nicely, explain what it is you're doing, what you expect, what you would like them to do. Ask them if they're interested. And some people you just know. I have people in my life that would fall all over themselves if I asked them to be a beta reader. But at the same time, I know they're the kind of people who would never get back to me. So I know better than to ask them, because that would be frustrating for them and not so helpful for me. But other writers, people you know, I put a request out online with just kind of generically the picture that you saw of my dog Archie in the beta readers news. I put that on my Facebook page with a blurb about beta readers. And of course, a cute dog picture attracts people. So my friends read it. And that was helpful. There's another group I'm in because one of the, well, actually 3 of the characters in my book are weavers and spinners. And so I'm in a couple of groups with weavers and spinners. And I have already let them know that's what I'm working on in one group, but I haven't yet requested beta readers from that group, but that would have been a smart thing to do. So, and Mike asks, would I be willing to send a copy of my newsletter in Word that we could use as a template? We could put our emails in the chat for me. Yeah, that would be nice. Just realize, of course, you're going to have different things that you're going to want people to cover. We all have different things we want to get feedback on our books. And but that would work. I just took the little Microsoft sample newsletter thing that popped up on Word when I was getting ready to click on new document one day. And there were many things that I could have been doing that day, but I had to wait on the installation person from Frontier to hook up my Wi-Fi. And so that's the day I spent playing with that. And Judith asked, to what extent would I specifically look for beta readers who are fans of your particular genre? If you have a genre that is different, if you have a genre that many people who are your friends and fellow writers and they're reading it would say, you? If you have a genre that's very specific, those would be times when it's important to look for beta readers that are specifically interested in your genre. Yeah, I think that's one thing. There's certain kinds of horror. There's certain kinds of writing with violence and that sort of thing. Yeah, and there's a lot of writing styles that use a lot of tropes. And if the people you're asking to be beta readers, if the concept of the tropes go right over their heads, yeah, that's not helpful for you or for them. They're just going to wonder, what the heck is my friend writing? What is this all about? So, and Beth asks a great question for all of us, perhaps, certainly for her. How can I become a semi-professional beta reader? This was fun. There are people on some of the websites where it's for jobs and different tasks where, and you probably know about more about these job websites where people will want someone to write 500 words for a blog on raising chickens. And those kind of websites where they're getting people doing freelancing things will often have requests for beta readers, or you can put in a request for a beta reader. And that's becoming more and more popular, to the point that there are some people, no one that I asked, but people who've informed me, oh, I wouldn't beta read for free. Are you crazy? And so they're obviously doing it for money, or else they're refusing to not do it for money. I'm not sure which. So there is that. And so Beth, can you tell us any more about online job options for people wanting to do the freelancing with the beta reader, or any kind of freelancing that way?
One that I haven't actually gone to look for it, obviously, since I asked you, but one that occurs to me is Upwork. I know they and oh, there's another one. I can't think of that's it's something like keyboard. I can't think of the name of it. I have to get back with you on that.
Well, probably if you were to put Upwork in a search engine, the people who pay for advertisements, their websites would also come up in your search.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah. And Beth has the advantage of, well, she's retired now. That's an advantage too, but she's helped probably thousands and thousands of people get jobs. And so that's been good. Yeah. Through her county.
Not too many freelancers or writers though. So.
Right. That's one of those, oh, honey, you poor thing. Or have you considered training as a a keyboard specialist? I don't know. Yeah. So other comments, other questions? Has anyone here used a beta reader before? Alicia, you have. Yeah. Would you like to unmute and tell us how it worked for you?
Yeah, on the book that I just finished, I can't imagine having 12 or 18 beta readers. That would be overwhelming. I had 6. 3 were friends and 3 were other authors that we read each other's work. And I gave them a list of 6 questions, character, story, plot. So that was the feedback I was looking for. It was really funny. One of my friends, I didn't give them instructions about how to use the review feature in Word. Now I will in the future. She printed the whole thing out and wrote comments in by hand. I was like, oh my gosh, that's like over 200 pages that she printed out on her own. So I definitely, that next time I would ask them to use the review feature in Word. That works really, really well. But it was a good experience. And I like right now I'm reading a book for another author. And then whenever my next one's done, she promises to read it for me. So just kind of that exchange of services works well.
That's great. I know in the past, I've been essentially asked to be a beta reader. Author friends have asked if I would read their book. And now, as I was doing the research to find out how to do the beta reader thing, I realized, oh my gosh, that's what I was doing. But where Beth had mentioned to me, tell me what you're looking for, tell me what you want, and give me the time frame. None of those writers told me what they were looking for or gave me a time frame. And so whatever I provided for them was pretty useless. But I'm thinking probably whatever their beta readers provided for them was not real helpful. But I know for sure mine was not helpful. So yeah, Cindy, go ahead.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I had my aunt who is self-published. She read my book and she started to read it actually, and she gave me some great comments. She's had a professional editor and her book has actually been selling in a local bookstore. She lives at Inverness in Northern California. She got a lot of good feedback on it. But then it stopped. And I know she's going through some life changes with my uncle. He's got Parkinson's and they're ready to move. And I'm thinking her comments and her input are so great and helpful, but I don't want to push her. So I think that's why it's good to have more numbers. I mean, I asked my sister to do it and she said, oh yeah, I'm retired now and I can read it. But you know, crickets. So family's helpful, and my sister reads all the time. She has her Kindle with her everywhere she goes. So I agree that family is good, but I believe that people outside the family, maybe people in other critique groups, or like you said, other people that write, that understand the genre, I think that's probably the best way to go. But yes, I did have my aunt start, and it's just frustrating because I want her to keep going.
Yeah. And knowing where to respond to her silence with just normal concern versus, oh my gosh, I am not nagging you about not finishing.
Right.
To what extent you even bring that up.
Right. Well, I've asked her a few times, but months have passed when I do that. Oh, by the way, you know, I'm really happy that you got 44 pages to me, but if you can, you know, let me know if you can continue. But I mean, since they're doing it for free, there's that fine line that you're walking. If you're paying someone to do it, you know, of course, there's a deadline and you don't get paid if you don't do your job. So I could see where the professional beta reader is great, but it's expensive.
Yeah, I wouldn't even want to begin to hazard a guess how much it would cost.
Yeah.
We would be definitely speaking of vanity press
Right.
on my part when I'm,
right.
you know, putting out that kind of money.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, other questions or comments?
Well, you know, of course, most everybody else doesn't. This is my first rodeo. Started writing this book about 1.5 years ago. And I did not call them beta readers. But from the beginning, once I had 8 or 10 chapters, I tried to get people just to read that and give me feedback. And you're right, don't ask your family. My wife is yet to read it. But I've got people in the family that read that genre. And I was unable to get them to read it. I've had one person that has read it through and give me comments. And that was my brother-in-law, who's been reading science fiction and fantasy all his life. And he read it through in a couple of weeks and gave me really good feedback on it. The one that encouraged me the most was, when is the second book coming out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great, Richard. And I know
that's the only one out of about 6 that I've actually printed the manuscript and gave it to people. And they haven't gotten back to me, and it's been months.
Yeah. And that is one of those things in giving people a time frame. I was very concerned about I gave a 3-week time and actually let people know. I sent it out over weekend, said the count would start on Wednesday, and then figured people had until 3 weeks and then the weekend. but I know some people are really fast readers and other people takes them longer. I've had a couple of people that had device issues with their reading. And like I said, life happens. There's that. So yeah, it's difficult. You have to let people know. The other thing as well is it's really important when you're going for beta readers where you want them to get the real experience of reading your book. It's so important to have the whole book there. And that's one thing where if I were to just give out 26 of the 52 chapters, that would be a mean teaser for them. Or even, let's see, give out, I don't know, 47 of the 52 chapters. That would be very unkind for my beta readers. I had one woman who, and it's too bad she's not here tonight, she was absolutely enraged when she contacted me because what I had allowed to happen to one of my characters. It gets resolved, sort of. But anyway, I just thought it was so funny that I'm really glad I did not stop the book there for her, and I did send the whole book out. Yeah.
Well, now you know why I'm here.
Yes, yes, and it's something to work on, and I think that's where if we can get a group together within our branch and or within the California Writers Club, we'll realize this is important. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I put in the chat that this might be a good thing to have even as a recurring thing in our newsletter. You know, Mike is looking for beta readers. If you're interested, you know, contact him here and let people know, because it would be a very healthy thing for our writers clubs, all of them across the state, if we started working together and helping each other with beta reading.
I did put in a request for beta readers in the Inkslinger. That's the name of the High Desert branch of the California Writers Club that I'm a part of that's sponsoring this. And to my knowledge, I had no one volunteer or think about volunteering, but I don't know, perhaps some of you who are in the branch saw that and thought, I don't know what a beta reader is, but maybe I will go to this Act 2 to find out more about it. So I think as people know more about it, they'll understand how helpful it is. And yeah. So let's see, we have one more. Yeah, Richard says perhaps an article on what a beta reader is and does might be in order. Yeah, and that's something that's certainly good.
Yeah.
And I know I can take little snippets from what was in the beta reader news that I put out that gives a rundown on beta readers. And yeah, just really appreciate that. Cindy.
Sorry, I keep raising my hand. That's just being a school teacher for so many years.
Oh,
And
that's fine.
I just wanted to make one comment. I did have my critique group. I came up from Long Beach. I had a long time critique group. Couple members read my book, and it's really helpful, but they've read your chapters all along, and then they get a whole thing, and they've given comments all along. So maybe they don't think they need to reiterate what they've said before, because one of my critique group members, bless her heart, she had one comment: you spelled lamb wrong. It's not L-A-M-B, it's L-A-M. And that was it. She goes, other than that, it flowed wonderful and I loved it. Well, positive, we need to know what excited, the reader and where they found it to be engaging. And that way, if you do another book, which I'm working on the second in this series that I'm writing, it's good to know what people liked and not just, oh, the whole thing was wonderful. So that's good that you have the guidelines. And I think those are really important, because when I asked them to read it, I just said, let me know what you think.
Right.
Well, that's pretty generic.
Right. And along with that, Mike was in the critique group with me when he got to see the original beginning of the book. And so he's able to make comments as he's seen it farther along, saying, oh, this is so much better. This is more of a hook, and that sort of thing. But when you're totally right, when people have been going along and critiquing, like with me, my inability to put closing quotation marks, so I'm always airing out my conversations. I start out the quotation marks for conversation and I forget to put the last one in. And so silly things like that, I keep doing. And yeah, just so there's a reason why you don't want your critique group, unless it's someone in your critique group who has not seen the book at all. Then that would totally totally work. Ooh, Richard Zone says beta reader boot camp, some training. Yeah, that sounds great. I got and Judith says, what was the most surprising comment you got from any beta reader? The most surprising one, and Kathy and I have had a conversation about how to fix this. The reader said she was distracted by the loss of an L from Russell's name. One of my characters is named Russell. And I work in Scrivener, and then I put it into Word. And along the lines, there are bizarre things that happen with spelling. And so some of my Russells became Russell with one L. And I was trying to figure out, how do I fix this? Because if I say every time it's Russell, change it to Russell, and then there's one that's spelled correctly, so then it'll end up being spelled Russell. And Kathy suggested, well, yeah, then look for the Russell and have it change it to the two L's. And having to deal with that in the manuscript, it was so funny because they also screwed up his last name, which is Tremblay. And in French Canada, that name is as popular as Smith. But yeah, my word processing did not seem to think it that way. And it reminded me of one time driving my 67 Chevy full of little Girl Scouts in the back seat up Cajon Pass and having a tire blow up and blow out, and me trying to struggle to control the car. There are certain things with the writing that come across like that. And it's, how do I put all this work and all these things and checking all this stuff? And it's one person's first and last name that is just totally going haywire. So that was kind of funny. I thought, oh my gosh, because I hadn't read it through since I did the switch from the Scrivener to the Word. And then the most gratifying comments were from those people who said, I want to read another one. Will you let me do this again? Or I loved your characters. I want to do that. I'm trying to find the comment from one person, which, well, hang on, I will pause just a moment here. And maybe, you know what? My computer is being slow tonight. I won't, oh, maybe not. No, it's being slow. Anyway, someone was so eloquent in telling me how there were places that they essentially had to shovel through my description to see if there was any point. That's just an annotated, not an annotated, a condensed version of their comment, but it was one of those things that it was surprising. It was hard to take, but at the same time, it was just so funny because they had worked so hard at the writer's craft in crafting that comment to let me know, yeah, you need to ask yourself how does this apply to the story? So that was a fun one. Okay, well, it is 7 o'clock and I thank you all for being here. And Mike says it's being recorded. We can direct people to this presentation. I would imagine expect to see something in the Inkslinger. And Richard, who
Yes.
suggested having something in the Inkslinger, happens to be the editor of the Inkslinger. So yeah, and especially, yes, great to have you here. Alicia says, thanks for the invite. And I'm just delighted that those of you who are not a member of our branch at the California Writers Club came to find out what I was going to dither on about tonight. And it was just great to have you here. So thank you so much. Thank you for your writers, your writing, and thank you for the way that you support other writers. And yeah, keep writing and keep reading. So
Everybody,
you.
let's unmute ourselves and let Anita know how much we appreciate her doing this for us all.
Anita, thank you.
You're welcome.